Good morning, students. My name is CHSV Prasad Rao, and I am working as senior lecturer in EEE department at Government Polytechnic, Yadriguta. Today, we are continuing as AC motor. In this AC motor, we will continue the third chapter, that is three-phase induction motors. In the last class, we have studied the resultant magnetic field of a rotating magnetic field is equal to 1.5 times the maximum flux in any phase in a three-phase. That means if you give a three-phase supply to a three-phase stator winding, then it will produces a rotating magnetic field whose magnitude is equal to 1.5 times the maximum flux, and it is rotating with a synchronous speed. At any instant, if you see at 0 degrees, 45, 90, 100, 120, 150, at any angle, 240, 270, at any angle, the magnitude is same, that is 1.5 times the maximum flux. We have derived this. We have derived this, that the maximum flux is equal to 1.5 times the resultant flux is equal to 1.5 times the maximum flux at any instant, that is 0 degrees, at any degrees. So next, the rotating magnetic field is rotates at a speed of synchronous speed, that is 120 f by p, and we covered the construction also. So construction of induction motor. So in three-phase induction motor, there are two parts for construction. First one is stator and rotor. We covered this in the last class. Once again, I will give the brief explanation about this one. There are two parts, stator and the rotor. The stationary part is called stator and the rotating part is called rotor. So in stator, so constructionally, the stator of a induction motor is the same as that of synchronous motor or generator. That means it is the outermost surface for the motor, and it is a stationary part. It contains slots on the inner periphery of the rotor. So it is an outer stationary hollow cylinder structure made of laminations of steel having slots on inner periphery. So, and the insulating conductors are placed in the stator slots and are suitably connected to form a three-phase balanced star or delta connected circuit, and all the six terminals of the three-phase stator winding, that is starting and finishing. So like that, for each phase it has two terminals, starting terminals. So likewise for three phase we have six terminals. The six terminals are brought out and they are kept outside a box that is called terminal box. So that from this terminal box the user can connect to the supply, and the three-phase stator winding is wound for a definite number of poles as the requirement of the speed. So depending on the speed, the number of poles are designed. Get greater the number of poles, that means lesser the speed. When the three-phase supply is given to the stator winding, then what happened just now we are seeing in the slide also it is showing a rotating magnetic field of constant magnitude is produced, which is rotating at synchronous speed, and the resultant flux is equal to 1.5 times the maximum flux. So this is at any instant. So this rotating flux induces an EMF in the rotor by mutual induction principle. If you see the manufacturing process, the stator winding is first wound in slots and properly connected. It is then dipped in a insulating varnish, and after that it is fixed in the frames. The insulation is required, otherwise it will become short circuited, and we have to choose the insulation material depending on the current carrying capacity. Suppose the current carrying it is the machine is designed for high rating, then the current flowing also high and the losses produced also high. So depending on that one, we have to design the insulation material so that it can withstand the heat. What is the meaning of depending on heat? What is the heat? Heat means heat is in the form of losses are in the form of heat. That means if a small motor, less losses will be there. Heat produced is less. For a large machine, that is higher rating machine, it carries large value of current, then the losses produced are also large and the heat produced also high. So the insulation is designed such that to bear this heat. The structure and thus ample provision for the air circulation and cooling also essential for the operation of induction motor. Cooling also we have to take the precaution because the temperature rises in the winding in a very definite limiting factor of the motor output. That means we have to make the provision for the heat control also. So this is the stator, purpose of stator, and how the windings are connected. Next part is rotor. The name only says the rotating part is called rotor. So it is the rotating part of the motor, so it is called rotor. There are two types of rotors: squirrel cage rotor and phase wound rotor. For squirrel cage rotor, almost 90% of the induction motors are designed with squirrel cage motor. Squirrel cage motor because this type of rotor has a simplest and most rugged construction. Most rugged construction. In this case, the rotor core is laminated steel cylinder having slots on the outer periphery. A common practice in constructing the squirrel cage is to place the assembled core and force the molten conducting material aluminum or copper in the slots. The rotor conductors need not be insulated from the core since the current flows through the least resistance path. So automatically it flows through the conductor. The rotor bars are short circuited at both ends by end rings. The rotor slots are not made parallel to the rotor shaft axis. They are skewed at a certain angle to reduce magnetic noise during working, to produce more uniform torque, and to prevent possible magnetic locking called cogging of the rotor with the stator. So that means it is not, it is the rotor axis is, the rotor slots are not parallel to the axis of the shaft. They are skewed, that are at a certain angle. So why? Because to avoid the magnetic locking between the both the rotor and the stator poles. In some cases, heavy conductor bars are driven into the slots with a tight fit and project a short distance from each other, and rings with holes are projected in the conductors. When the conductors and the end rings are soldered together, and then as the end rings are short circuited with the end rings, so it is not possible to add any external distance for squirrel cage rotor. The motors which are using squirrel cage rotors are called three-phase squirrel cage induction motors. Next one is phase wound rotor. So in this case, it consists of a laminated cylinder core having slots on the outer periphery and is provided with three-phase distributed winding in the insulated rotor slots similar to stator winding. The rotor is wound for as many poles as the number of stator poles and is always wound for three-phase. Even the stator is wound for two-phase. So that means the rotor winding is always wound for three-phase, three-phase, even though stator is wound for two-phase. And the number of poles in the rotor must be equal to the number of poles in the stator winding. The three phases are started internally and the other three windings. So that means in a rotor winding, how many terminals will be there? Three starting, three ending. So for a star connection, the three starting winding are connected at a point and the three finishing points are windings are brought out and connected to three insulated slip rings which are mounted on the same shaft, which are on the same shaft. On this, that means on the same rotor shaft, it has a three slip rings. The three finishing windings are brought out and they are connected to one side of the slip rings. On the other side, they kept a brushes. From these brushes, three brushes are connected. The three brushes are connected to a three-phase star-connected external rheostat. External rheostat. So by using these brushes, we can connect some external resistance in series with the rotor winding during starting period. Under normal running conditions, the slip rings are automatically, so when only these slip rings are only these slip rings are connected at the time of starting and external resistance is connected. So this arrangement makes it possible to add external resistance to each phase of the rotor during the starting period of starting period for increase the starting torque. Under normal condition, the slip rings are automatically short-circuited by means of metal collar, which is pulled along the shaft and connected all the slip rings short-circuited. Then what happened? Then the rotor is short-circuited on itself like squirrel cage rotor, and the brushes are lifted automatically to reduce friction, wear and tear. So only at the time of starting we can connect external resistance in series with the rotor winding. So once the motor is started, then what we will do? We will automatically short circuit the slip rings and external resistance is removed. So this is useful for starting the motor with a high starting torque. When the motor started with normal speed, it is automatically disconnected. So today we will cover the working principle of induction motor on no load and induction motor behavior on no load, and on load. So why does the rotor rotates? The reason why the rotor of induction motor is set into rotation is when a three-phase stator winding are connected to a three-phase supply, then a rotating magnetic flux of constant magnitude but rotating at synchronous speed is produced. So then what happened? So this flux passes through the air gap and touches the rotor surface and cuts the rotor conductors which are stationary. So then what happened? Due to relative speed between the rotor flux and stationary rotor conductors, an EMF is produced in the rotor according to Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction. So what is the Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction? When a conductor cuts a magnetic field or magnetic field cuts the conductor, then an EMF is induced in the conductor. In this case, the rotor conductors are stationary, but the rotating magnetic field which is produced from the stator, it is cutting the stationary rotor conductors. Then what happened? Automatically then, according to Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction, an EMF is induced in the rotor conductors. So, the frequency of the induced EMF is same as the supply frequency. So, as EMF is induced in the rotor conductors and all the rotor conductors are in a closed loop, then current starts to flow through these conductors. Then what happened? It produces a torque. So, and the frequency is equal to supply frequency. Its magnitude is proportional to the relative velocity between the flux and the conductors, and its direction is given by Fleming's right hand rule. Since the rotor bars and the conductors form a closed circuit, then what happens? The rotor current is produced whose direction is given by Lenz's law and is such as to oppose the every cause producing it. In this case, The cause which producing the rotor current is the relative velocity between the rotor flux of the stator and the stationary rotor conductors. Then what happened? Hence, to reduce the relative speed, the rotor starts running in the same direction as that of the flux and tries to catch the rotating flux but cannot catch that one. So what happened? Because this one, to the rotor starts rotating in the same direction as that of the flux and tries to catch the rotating flux. The setting up of the torque for the rotating the rotor is expressed as here the figure. These are the figure, the rotor, how it is A, B, C. Here, the figure A, the figure A means this one, starting figure. The rotor is rotating clockwise and the stator flux also rotating clockwise. In figure A, the stator field, which is assumed to be clockwise, rotating clockwise, rotating clockwise, is shown down. See here. So how it is shown? It is flowing down. This is the stator flux flowing downwards. The relative motion of the rotor with respect to the stator is anti-clockwise. By applying a right-hand rule, the direction of induced in the rotor is found to be onward. See here. The flux is coming like this here, how the rotor is rotating. Here, the rotor produces the current due to induced EMF and its direction is given by the Lenz law. Here you can see the current is coming like this. So whereas the rotor flux is in the direction of anti-clockwise. This is the rotor flux, this is the stator flux. In the figure A, it shows only a stator flux. In figure B, it is showing only a rotor flux. If you see in the figure C, both rotor flux and the stator flux. If you see on the right hand side of the conductor, the rotor flux is moving upward and the stator flux is coming downward. Both are in opposite direction. Then what happens? Both will get cancel each other and on the right hand side, the resultant flux is weakened. Whereas in the left hand side, the rotor flux is downward and the stator flux also downward. So on the right hand side of the conductor, both the rotor flux and the stator flux are in the downward direction. So then what happened? On the left hand side, the resultant flux is strengthened, whereas in left hand side it is weakened. This is very important concept. So this is the main how it is working. I will explain once again. The figure A shows the stator flux alone, which is moving from up to down. On figure B, it is showing the rotor flux, which is anti-clockwise direction around the conductor. And in figure C, it shows the both flux, stator flux and rotor flux in the around the conductor. On this conductor, if you see on the right hand side, the stator flux is moving downward direction and the rotor flux is moving upward direction on the left hand side of the conductor. Then what happened? The stator flux is downward and the rotor flux is upward. Then because of this, both flux are stator flux and the rotor flux are opposite direction, then the result flux is weakened on the right hand side of the conductor. And on the left hand side, both the stator flux and the rotor flux are in the downward direction. Then what happened? The resultant flux is strengthened at the right hand side. Sorry, strengthened at the left hand side. It is weakened on the right hand side and is strengthened on the left hand side. Then what happened? This flux, as you know, the flux property is it always flows in a vertical direction. So then what happened? It will produce as a force which pushes this conductor towards the clockwise direction. Here, this conductor produces a force which pushes this conductor towards the right, towards the right. So, likewise, every conductor, this conductor produces a force which pushes this conductor in clockwise direction. This conductor also produces a small force, pushes right hand side, that is clockwise, this conductor also. So, like this, all these conductors produces small force which pushes these rotor conductors in clockwise direction. Then what happen as the rotors are placed where the rotor conductors are placed? They are placed in the stator slots. Sorry, rotor slots. As the rotor conductors are moving, automatically the rotor also rotates. The rotor also rotates. When it starts rotating, it tries to the rotor conductors cuts more stator magnetic flux. Then what happened? Rate of change of flux increases, induced EMF increases, current increases, torque increases, speed increases. When speed increases, again the rotor conductors cuts more stator flux. That is, rate of change of flux d pi by dt increases, then induced EMF E increases, then the current produced I also increases, then the torque T increases, then the speed increases. Like this, slowly, automatically it picks up the speed and the motor starts rotating in the clockwise direction. I hope you understand this one. The same, the same it is there. The direction of the flux due to rotor current alone is shown in the figure B. So for this one, by applying Fleming's left hand rule or by the effect of combined fields in the figure C, it is clear that the rotor conductors experience a force tends to rotate them in clockwise direction. Hence, the rotor is set into rotation in the same direction as that of stator. How the stator is rotating? Stator is rotating clockwise, so the rotor also starts rotates in the same direction. As I explained, as I explained in figure C, so, as the right hand side of the conductor, the resultant flux is weakened. On the left hand side, it is strengthened and pushes the conductor in the clockwise direction, in the same direction as the stator flux rotates. So because of that one, then what happened? The motor starts rotates in the same direction as the resultant flux, and slowly it picks up the speed. So next one is slip. In practice, the rotor never succeeds in catching up with the stator field. If it catches, then what happened? The relative speed between the two is zero. When relative speed is zero, induced EMF is zero and armature current is zero, then torque is zero. When torque is zero, then what happened? The motor stops. That's why the induction motor never rotates at synchronous speed. Its speed is always less than synchronous speed, that is ns is equal to 120 f by p. Its speed is always less than synchronous speed. So what is the synchronous speed? What is the slip? Speed is equal to synchronous speed minus motor speed. Note down this. So this is the slip speed. Slip speed is equal to synchronous speed minus motor speed. So the induction motor will always run at a speed lower than synchronous speed. It never catches the synchronous speed. What happens if it catches the synchronous speed? If it catches the synchronous speed, then the relative speed is zero and induced EMF is zero. If induced EMF is zero, then current is zero. When current is zero, the torque produced is zero. When torque produced is zero, the speed is zero and the motor stops. So the difference between the synchronous motor speed and the synchronous speed is called slip. What is slip? The difference between the motor speed and the synchronous speed is called slip. So ns is equal to slip speed. So nsy is equal to speed of the magnetic field, that is synchronous speed. Nm is equal to mechanical shaft speed of the, that is the motor speed. So that is why the rotor runs at a speed which is always less than the speed of the stator field. The difference in speed depends on the load on the motor. That means if load increases, speed decreases. The difference between the synchronous speed ns and the actual speed of the motor n is known as slip. Though it is expressed in so many expressed in revolution per second, and it is expressed in the percentage of the synchronous speed. So actually the term slip is describe descriptive of the way in which the rotor slips back from synchronism. So percentage of slip S is equal to ns minus n by ns into 100. This is the percentage slip and it is denoted with a letter S. Always remember S percentage slip is equal to ns minus n by ns, where ns is equal synchronous speed, n is the actual speed of the rotor. This is very important. We have to do everything depends on this slip only. So where ns minus n is called the slip speed. Sometimes in problem he will ask to calculate the slip speed, that is ns minus n, and rotor speed is equal to n is equal to ns into 1 minus s. This is also useful for doing problems. So it may be kept in mind that revolving flux is rotating synchronously relative to the stator, but at a slip speed relative to the rotor. You have to remember that the revolving flux is rotating at a synchronous speed with respect to stator, but it is rotating with a slip speed with respect to rotor. So induction motor on no load and on load. When induction motor is on no load, the rotor rotates nearly synchronous speed and slip is very small. As the load on the motor increases, then what happened? Slip speed and slip increases. So the stator current frequency and the rotor current frequency relations are given. When the rotor is stationary, the frequency of the rotor current is the same as the supply frequency. When the rotor is stationary, it is not moving, then the frequency of the rotor current is same as the supply frequency. But when motor, but when the rotor starts revolving, then the frequency depends on the relative speed or slip speed. So that is Fr is equal to S into F E. This is the supply frequency. This is the rotor frequency. Multiply S is the slip. Fr is equal to S into Fc. When the rotor is blocked, that is not rotating, then slip is equal to 1, S is equal to 1. Then the frequency of the induced voltage is equal to the supply frequency. On the other hand, if the rotor starts at a synchronous speed n is equal to 0, then what happened? S is equal to 0, then frequency is 0. So the rotor never runs at a synchronous speed. So at any speed, slip speed, the frequency of the rotor current is F. Then ns minus n is equal to 120 F by P. What is ns? That is 120 F by P. Dividing 1 by the 1, that is F dash by F is equal to ns minus n by ns, that is S. So the rotor current has a frequency of F is equal to S into F supply frequency, and when flowing through the individual phase of the rotor winding gives rise to the rotating magnetic field. Note down this. Note down the expression what it is given. Slip speed, rotor speed. Every day, slip speed, frequency speed, and relative speed. All these terms we will come. Sometimes he will ask for short questions, 1 mark and 3 marks also, and he can give some problem also on this. Thus, individual rotating magnetic field produces a combined rotating magnetic field whose speed relative to the rotor is 120 F by P. That is 120 into what is F or F supply frequency, that is S into F. So that is equal S into Ns. The rotor itself is running at speed n with respect to space. Hence, the speed of the rotor field in space is equal to speed of field relative to rotor plus speed of rotor relative to space, that is S into ns plus n is equal to, this is the rotor speed. We have the rotor speed formula, that is ns into 1 minus s. Substitute this one, and in between these two, if you take ns as common, then s and s get cancelled. You will get synchronous speed. So what is the meaning of this? So it means that no matter what the value of slip, the rotor currents and the stator currents each produces a sinusoidal distributed magnetic field of constant magnitude and constant speed of ns. So this is the speed how it is giving. The rotor, so from this what we understood, for working of three-phase induction motor, a three-phase rotating flux of constant magnitude and synchronous speed is required. So that means when we give a three-phase supply to a three-phase winding, then it produces a rotating magnetic field of constant magnitude. So what is the constant magnitude? What is that value? That is resultant flux is 1.5 times the maximum flux at any instant, and it rotates at synchronous speed. And what we covered, that means the three-phase supply given to the three-phase stator. Three-phase supply is given to the three-phase stator winding. Then rotating magnetic field is produced. The rotor torque also produced by using Faraday's laws of electromagnetic induction and Fleming's law and Lenz's law we are used to know the direction of current produced and the direction of resultant the direction of rotor flux. Faraday's law is for induced EMF in the rotor and Fleming's law is for direction of rotor current and Lenz's law is direction of rotor flux. So in this case, what he asked in this today's class, I will ask explain the working principle of three-phase induction motor. Then you have to write diagram and you have to explain. It is a big question. You will give for 10 marks or 5 marks. Then next one is what is slip, what is slip speed and slip. What is slip speed? Can anyone tell? That is ns minus nr. What is slip? Slip s is equal to ns minus n by ns. So take the assignment. You have to complete for the next class. You watch this video one or two times and listen it, and you open the textbook and read it. If you have any doubt, ask me in the next class. But after reading, you do the assignment, that is, derive an expression for frequency of the rotor current. What is the formula? Fr is equal, that is, rotor frequency Fr is equal to S into F. Slip into supply frequency. Fr is equal to S into F. You have to derive. Next, explain the working of three-phase induction motor. You have to draw the figure and then you have to explain. So you read this one and listen the video carefully, and if you have any doubt ask me in the next class. You have to complete the assignment also for the next class. Thank you.